The vast golden expanse of the Zimbabwean bushveld shimmered under the mid-morning sun, an endless tapestry of acacia and mapane trees stretching to the horizon. A lone buzzard circled lazily overhead, a speck against the impossibly blue sky. The serene silence was broken only by the chirping of cicadas, a rhythm as ancient as the land itself. Then a sudden, jarring cut. The lens was tight on Kaelen Mchunu's face, sweat beading at his temples, his brow furrowed in concentration. His hands, calloused from years of gripping the camera, held the heavy device steady against his shoulder. His gaze was intense, scanning the dense foliage, searching for a story in every shadow. Years spent documenting the fragile dance of life and death in these wildlands had sharpened his senses, making him acutely aware of any disruption to its natural harmony. It was an unnatural glint, a flash of dull metallic rust against the muted greens and browns, that snagged his attention. His breath hitched. His Tendai, over there, he whispered, his voice barely audible above the hum of the bush. His eyes, fixed on the distant anomaly, were already framing the shot he hoped never to capture. Jabulani, the stoic leader of their anti-poaching patrol, followed Kalen's gaze. A grim nod was all the acknowledgement needed. He raised a hand, a silent command for his four-man team to spread out, rifles held at the ready, advancing with the practiced stealth of ghosts. "Poachers are getting bolder," Jabulani muttered, the words heavy with a weary resignation that masked an underlying steel. As they crept closer, the air grew thick with a putrid, sickening smell. It was a suffocating cocktail, the sharp ammonia tang of stale urine, the heavy decay of feces, and an unmistakable, horrifying metallic tang of dried blood. Kalen's stomach churned, a primal alarm blaring in his mind. Then a sound. A low, guttural growl, raw and broken, ripped through the oppressive silence. It wasn't the roaring challenge of a king, but the desperate, pain-filled rasp of something utterly spent. A shiver, cold and unwelcome, snaked down Kalen's spine, momentarily eclipsing the searing heat of the sun. They pushed through the final screen of thorny brush, and the scene that unfolded before them stole Kalen's breath, replacing it with a cry trapped in his throat. There, to a massive acacia tree, was an adult male lion, not merely injured, but utterly broken. Its once magnificent frame was a skeletal outline beneath ragged fur, ribs protruding starkly. Around its neck, a thick rusted chain bit deep into festering flesh, its links disappearing into the earth, anchoring the predator to its torment. Open sores wept around the ligature, attracting a cloud of flies that buzzed with sickening diligence. Jabulani's face, usually a mask of calm authority, hardened into granite. "Bait," he stated flatly, his voice devoid of emotion yet laced with an unspoken fury. "They chain a lion, let tourists hunt easy prey." The words were a vile pronouncement, confirming Kalen's worst fears. A surge of white-hot rage, pure and blinding, washed over Kaelen. His hands tightened on his camera, knuckles white. "How long has he been here?" he managed to choke out, his voice tight, barely his own. The professional detachment, the filmmaker's required objectivity, shattered into a million pieces. Zola Dlamini, the patrol's primary tracker, knelt, his expert eyes scanning the trampled earth around the animal. "Many days," he reported, his voice low, "maybe a week. See how worn the earth is, how deep the scuff marks are where he tried to pull free." The lion, its massive head heavy, lifted its gaze to meet theirs. Its amber eyes, once alight with fierce life, were now dulled by suffering, devoid of spirit. Yet, in their depths, Kaelen saw not just resignation, but an unsettling, stark intelligence, and a desperate, silent plea that it pierced him to his core. He fought his professional instinct to keep his distance, to document the horror objectively. Those eyes, those ancient knowing eyes, were pulling him in, demanding more than just a lens between them. Jabulani, his jaw clenched, reached for the radio clipped to his belt. "We need the veterinary team. Now. Location coordinates." "How long?" Kaelen pressed, his voice hoarse, cutting Jabulani off. He knew the logistics, the vastness of the park, the stretched resources. Jabulani glanced at his watch, a sigh escaping his lips. 3 hours minimum. They're dealing with an incident at the eastern boundary. 3 hours. 3 hours might be an eternity for this creature. The thought was a spike in Kalen's gut. He knew with a horrifying certainty that he couldn't wait. Against all his training, against every rule of engagement in the field, he had to act. He might not last, Kaelen murmured, the words barely a whisper as he lowered his camera, letting it drop to hang uselessly by its strap. He took a step forward, his eyes fixed on Lazarus, the chained king, his hand instinctively reaching for the knife on his belt. "That's a wild lion, Mr. Mchunu," Zola warned, his voice a low rumble, two rangers beside him raising their rifles, sights trained on the emaciated king. "Even weak, he can kill you." His words were a necessary caution, a stark reminder of the inherent danger, but Kaelen had already calculated the risk. The terror in the lion's eyes, the sheer, unimaginable cruelty of its plight, outweighed his own survival instincts. "I know," Kaelen responded, his voice steadier than he felt. He gripped his canteen and a collapsible bowl. "But he's dying of thirst. I'm going to give him water at least." The human-inflicted suffering was a raw wound in his soul, burning away his fear. The lion's knowing eyes had seared into him, demanding empathy, demanding action. Jabulani, ever the pragmatist, weighed the risks. He nodded grimly. "We'll cover you, but at the first sign of aggression, you back away. Understand?" It wasn't an order, but a plea for Kaelen to exercise extreme caution. Kaelen acknowledged with a terse nod, his gaze already fixed on the chained beast. Moving with agonizing slowness, each step deliberate, he began his approach. The canteen, a familiar weight, felt alien in his trembling hand. He spoke in a low, soothing murmur, the words intended more for himself than the predator. "Hey, buddy, I'm not going to hurt you. Just some water." The lion watched him, its amber eyes unblinking, tracking Kaelen's every movement. The air thrummed with a silent tension, a fragile truce. But as Kaelen drew nearer, its massive shoulders, though skeletal, seemed to ease fractionally. A subtle shift, almost imperceptible yet profoundly significantly. The lion sensed his intent, the absence of threat in his slow open gestures. Finally, Kaelen knelt, placing the collapsible bowl carefully on the parched earth, just beyond the lion's reach. He poured a steady stream of water into it. The lion, too weak to lift itself fully, lowered its enormous head, burying its muzzle in the bowl, drinking with a desperate guttural thirst that spoke volumes of its agony. The sound of lapping water was a stark counterpoint to the earlier growl, a fragile breath of life in the face of despair. Kaelen refilled the bowl, then again, each time moving a fraction closer, pushing the boundaries of safety. His heart hammered against his ribs, but he pushed through the fear. He was now just beyond striking distance, close enough to see the texture of its matted fur, the raw edges of the open sores. The chain, a cruel iron tether, was secured by a thick, heavy-duty collar, padlocked and deeply embedded in the lion's neck. The skin around it was swollen, infected, a testament to days of friction and neglect. "We need to get this chain off," Kaelen stated, his voice a strained whisper to the rangers. He knew it was an impossible request. Zola replied, his voice equally tense. "Bolt cutters are in the vehicle, but you would need to touch him." Kaelen didn't need the warning. He knew touching a wild lion, even a weakened one, was madness. But the collar, that symbol of profound cruelty, had to go. Jabulani, observing Kaelen's unwavering resolve, made a swift decision. "I'll get the bolt cutters," he announced, turning towards the patrol vehicle. "But we use the emergency tranquilizer first. Just a partial dose. We can't risk fully sedating him out here without the vet team." He returned moments later, a pole syringe extended, a dart loaded with a minimal dose of tranquilizer. He jabbed it expertly into the lion's hindquarter. The lion flinched, a low growl rumbling in its chest, but the drug was fast-acting. Its amber eyelids drooped, its head swayed slightly, but it remained conscious, its gaze still fixed, though dulled, on Kaelen. "Now or never," Kaelen said, his voice flat with urgency, as Jabulani handed him the heavy bolt cutters. The weight of them felt enormous, a tool of liberation, but also a potential instrument of his own undoing. As Kaelen approached again, the partially sedated lion, despite its stupor, raised its massive head. Its amber gaze, now unfocused but still piercing, met Kaelin's. In that moment, an unnerving, unprecedented intelligence seemed to flicker behind its glazed eyes, a silent communication that transcended species, reaching directly into Kaelin's soul. It was a moment of profound connection, an unspoken trust. With trembling hands, Kaelen positioned the jaws of the bolt cutters around the thickest link of the chain near the collar. He squeezed. The metal groaned under the immense pressure. A powerful, sickening crack echoed through the bushveld. The chain snapped. A low, ragged growl rumbled from the lion's chest, a sound that held both pain and perhaps a glimmer of relief. Kaelen held his ground, utterly focused, refusing to break the connection, refusing to flinch. The chain was severed, a victory of sorts, but the cruel, heavy collar remained, a stark, festering testament to the depths of the conspiracy that had brought this king to its knees. "Vet team needs to remove it properly," Jabulani said, his voice grim. The task was far from over. With the chain severed, a fragile sense of hope entered the stifling air. The lion, momentarily free of its iron tether, attempted to rise. Its emaciated body trembled, muscles spasming, but it managed to push itself onto all fours for a few wobbly seconds before collapsing back to the earth with a heavy sigh. Yet in its amber eyes, a visible spark had rekindled, a flicker of defiance replacing the dull resignation. "He's still suffering," Kaelen insisted, his voice tight with an urgency that ignored his own exhaustion. He peeled strips of his trail jerky, leaving them beside the lion, along with another bowl of fresh water. "I'll manage." His own hunger was a distant concern. To everyone's astonishment, the lion, though growling faintly, didn't lunge. It studied Kaelen with that unsettling, penetrating gaze, a silent assessment. Then, with agonizing slowness, it lowered its head and began to eat the jerky, each bite a deliberate, desperate act of survival. The team, sensing the delicate truce, backed away, establishing a makeshift observation post further upwind. Kaelen, his documentary instincts kicking in, even amidst the chaos, started filming again. He meticulously documented the scene, the severed chains, the rusted metal barrel, the trampled earth, and especially the distinctive brand on the collar still embedded in Lazarus's neck. "Illegal safari operators," Jabulani explained, his voice laced with suppressed anger as he watched Kaelen film. "Wealthy foreigners looking for easy trophy hunts. They chain one lion to attract others, then take their pick." The revelation solidified Kaelen's resolve. This wasn't just about rescuing one animal. It was about exposing a far broader, darker conspiracy. Hours later, the whir of a distant engine announced their arrival. Dr. Anya Sharma, a renowned wildlife veterinarian, emerged from a dust-covered Land Cruiser, her assistant Thabo Manika close behind. Her gaze swept over the scene, finally settling on Kaelen. "You took quite a risk, Mr. Mchunu," she said, a hint of admiration in her voice, "but you likely saved his life." Sharma, with Thabo's help, quickly sedated Lazarus, allowing for a thorough medical assessment. The findings were stark: severe malnutrition, profound dehydration, and deeply infected wounds around the neck where the collar had chafed. "He's young," she murmured, "barely 5 years old, but he's sustained significant trauma, both physical and psychological." As Dr. Sharma worked, her movements precise and efficient, Kaelen zoomed his camera lens onto the collar. "Some kind of insignia," he noted, his voice capturing the detail. It was a stylized, intertwined symbol, distinct and unusual. This could help identify them. The conspiracy, he realized, now had a tangible lead. A spontaneous decision formed in Kaelen's mind. "I want to document his recovery," he told Dr. Sharma, "to follow his journey back to health." Dr. Sharma paused, her brow furrowed. "Human imprinting is a concern, Mr. Mchunu. We aim for rewilding, not domestication." "I understand," Kaelen replied, "but there's something different about him. He's not just an animal." Dr. Sharma considered, then nodded, a faint curiosity in her eyes. She revealed Lazarus's atypical responses to humans, how he showed neither overt fear nor aggression, even during the painful treatments. "It's as if he understands we're trying to help him," she mused. Days later, Lazarus was recovering in a temporary, robust enclosure at the veterinary clinic. Kaelen was inside, filming the lion as it lay, still weak but visibly stronger. Thabo entered. carrying a fresh bag for Lazarus's IV drip. Suddenly, a violent backfire from a passing vehicle outside the enclosure fence ripped through the air. The unexpected bang startled Thabo, making him jump. His medical kit clattered to the floor, scattering instruments. The lion, Lazarus, reacted instantly. Agitated by the sudden noise and the chaos in his space, he rose with unexpected strength, a low, ominous growl rumbling in his chest. Thabo froze, his eyes wide with terror, trapped between the agitated predator and the enclosure wall. No security was present, no time for tactical thinking. Kaelen's instinct screamed. He hit the emergency release button on the side gate, throwing it open, then positioned himself squarely between Thabo and the now fully upright growling lion. "Don't run, James," Kaelen commanded, his voice firm, projecting a calm he didn't feel. "Back away, slowly." Kaelen maintained eye contact with Lazarus, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. "Hey, big guy," he murmured, his voice gentle but unwavering. "Remember me? We're friends, remember?" Lazarus's growl subsided, his posture easing almost imperceptibly. A flicker of recognition, a memory of water and kindness seemed to pass between them. He recognized Kaelen. As Thabo scrambled out of the enclosure, relief washing over his face, Lazarus slowly lowered himself back to the ground. But then, in an unbelievable act, the lion rose once more, following Kaelen to the open door. It watched him exit, its amber eyes fixed on him until the gate clanged shut before turning and slowly returning to its resting spot. Dr. Sharma, reviewing the security footage later, watched the entire sequence, her jaw slack with amazement. The bond was undeniable, unprecedented. Dr. Sharma leaned against the enclosure fence, watching Kaelen speak softly to Lazarus, who was now resting near the viewing window. "Lions have memory, Mr. Mchunu," she conceded, a hint of awe in her voice. "But this level of recognition and non-aggression towards a human, it's truly unusual." Her scientific skepticism was giving way to an acknowledgement of the extraordinary. She granted Kaelen structured observation time, sensing the unique bond could aid Lazarus's recovery. Kaelen began spending hours near the enclosure, his laptop open, editing footage, or simply talking to Lazarus. He spoke about his day, about the ongoing investigation, about the hope he held for the lion's future. Lazarus, in turn, positioned himself near the window, his amber eyes following Kaelen's movements, his recovery visibly accelerating. The quiet companionship seemed to be a balm to his traumatized spirit. Kaelen's documentary, initially focused on wildlife conservation, now pivoted sharply to the illegal operation that had chained Lazarus. The distinctive insignia, captured with such clarity on his camera, became the central focus of his investigation. He meticulously analyzed every frame, every angle of the crude but deliberate branding. Working in tandem with Jabulani, Kaelen started tracing the brand. What they uncovered was far more disturbing than a lone poacher's illicit activity. The trail led not to a backwoods gang, but to a sophisticated corporate front, a powerful entity operating legally in agriculture, mining, and tourism, but with a shadowy underbelly of unethical, destructive activities. The forbidden safari was a cover for something far larger, far more entrenched. The investigation revealed a network exponentially more sophisticated than simple poachers. It hinted at powerful individuals, well connected within governmental structures, ensuring their operations remained untouched. This wasn't just a crime. It was systemic corruption, a carefully constructed web of complicity. Kaelen realized with a chilling certainty that his documentary was no longer just about conservation or a single rescued lion. It was about exposing a dangerous, organized conspiracy that reached into the highest echelons of power. The personal risk, once abstract, now felt terrifyingly real. Every piece of footage, every transcribed interview was a potential weapon and a target on his back. He meticulously archived every piece of evidence. The original footage of the chained lion, the clear shots of the brand, grainy but compelling witness statements from former poachers who, under the cloak of anonymity, revealed glimpses of the operation's scale. The sheer volume of data he collected was overwhelming, a testament to the conspiracy's reach. Subtle warnings began to seep into Kaelen's world. Anonymous emails with cryptic messages, strange vehicles spotted near his remote camp, the unnerving sensation of being watched. The powers he was exposing were aware. They were watching back. A heavy moral burden settled upon Kaelen's shoulders. His compassion for Lazarus had pulled him into a war he never anticipated against forces far more dangerous than any wild animal. He felt a profound sense of isolation, yet also an unshakable resolve. He shared his latest findings with Jabulani, who listened with a grim, knowing expression. "These groups, they have powerful friends, Kaelen," Jabulani confirmed, his voice low, a warning in every syllable. "Be careful. They won't hesitate to silence anyone who threatens their empire." Kaelen, undeterred, decided the documentary's focus needed to shift. It would no longer just be the story of Lazarus, but the story of the systemic corruption and the powerful individuals behind the forbidden safari. His film was becoming a direct threat, a potential unraveling of their illicit enterprise. Amidst the escalating tension, Lazarus continued to thrive. His wounds healed, leaving only the puckered scar around his neck as a permanent reminder of his ordeal. His fur regained its magnificent sheen, his lean frame filling out, and his strength returned, evident in the powerful, confident strides he now took within his enclosure. Preliminary clips of Kaelen's documentary, focusing on Lazarus's rescue and the distinctive brand, were strategically leaked to international wildlife organizations and select media outlets. The response was immediate and furious. International outrage ignited, putting immense pressure on local authorities. Increased anti-poaching patrols and law enforcement crackdowns followed, leading to a wave of arrests among the lower-level operators. But the key players, the masterminds behind the ubiquitous brand, remained elusive, protected. This hinted at the true depths of their influence, the impenetrable shield around them. Kaelen felt a growing unease. He realized that exposing the foot soldiers and the mid-level operators was merely a smokescreen. The true danger and the true victory lay in uncovering the masterminds the brand represented. He knew with chilling certainty that he was walking directly into a well-laid trap. If you're gripped by the incredible bond between Kaelen and Lazarus and the chilling conspiracy they've stumbled upon, then you won't want to miss how the story unfolds. Hit that like button, share this video with everyone you know, and subscribe so you don't miss a single part of this life and death struggle. The danger is escalating, and Kaelen's fight is far from over. 6 months had passed since Kaelen first found Lazarus chained and dying. Now the magnificent lion, fully recovered, was deemed ready for the next phase, transferred to a much larger natural enclosure designed to reacclimate him to a wild environment. Dr. Sharma, though pleased with Lazarus's physical recovery, harbored a dilemma. Physically, he's well, she explained to Kaelen, her brow furrowed, but his unusual relationship with humans, particularly with you, Kaelen, raises concerns. We can't release a lion that seeks out human contact. Mom, a solution was found. A vast fenced conservancy within the larger national park. It would offer Lazarus a semi-wild existence, allowing him to hunt natural prey and live as a lion should, monitored but protected from the human threats that had nearly claimed his life. It was the best compromise between true wilderness and ensuring his safety. The day of transfer was bittersweet for Kaelen. He had formed an extraordinary, unspoken bond with Lazarus, a connection that transcended species. Watching the crates being prepared, a profound sense of loss mingled with the overwhelming relief. This is what's best for him, Dr. Sharma gently reminded him, echoing his own thoughts. Lazarus was mildly sedated for the journey, a precaution to ensure his safety and the team's. He was carefully loaded and transported to a large acclimation enclosure at the very edge of the vast reserve. He would spend 2 weeks there, adjusting to the sights, sounds, and smells of his new, expansive home before the final release into the wild. Kaelen observed from a distance, camera in hand, as Lazarus slowly began to stir from the sedative. The lion woke cautiously, his amber eyes blinking, exploring his new surroundings with a mixture of apprehension and growing curiosity. "This is where our paths diverge, old friend," Kaelen murmured, his voice caught in his throat. Then, an extraordinary moment. Upon fully awakening, Lazarus didn't just scan his immediate environment. He lifted his head, turning it slowly, deliberately, his gaze sweeping the distant tree line. With startling precision, he located Kaelen's observation position nearly 100 yards away, his eyes, now clear and bright, fixed on Kaelen. Man and lion regarded each other across the expanse, a silent conversation passing between them. Then, Lazarus made a soft rumbling sound, a gentle chuffing, the distinctive greeting a lion uses among trusted pride members. It was a sound of recognition, of acknowledgement, of a bond unbreakable. After a moment he turned, finally, to truly explore the dense bush and open plains of his new home. Dr. Sharma and her staff, witnessing the profound exchange from their own observation point, were stunned. "Unprecedented," she whispered, her voice filled with awe, documenting the display of profound gratitude and intelligence. 2 weeks later, the day came for Lazarus to be released into the broader reserve. Kaelen, positioned far away with his long lens, documented the moment, his heart heavy with emotion, yet soaring with pride. The gate to the acclimation enclosure swung open. Lazarus paused, scenting the air of true boundless freedom. He took a few tentative steps into the wild, then stopped. He turned, looking directly back towards Kaelen, his powerful presence emanating gratitude and a farewell. With that final powerful acknowledgement, Lazarus loped away, a streak of golden-maned power disappearing into the tall grasslands, reclaiming his rightful place in the wild. Kaelen's documentary, Lazarus Rising, premiered to critical acclaim. It ignited fierce global conversations about wildlife conservation and the brutal realities of illegal trophy hunting. The film led to concrete action, increased anti-poaching patrols across the region, stricter laws, and a significant surge in arrests related to the network of illegal hunting outfitters. Lazarus's story had become a symbol, a rallying cry. But even in this moment of triumph, Kaelen knew the fight wasn't over. The lower-level operatives were caught, but the true masterminds, those behind the sinister corporate brand, still operated in the shadows, their influence vast, their grip on power unbroken. Kaelen had saved Lazarus, but he had merely wounded the beast of the conspiracy. He knew deep in his gut that the beast would soon strike back. Kaelen Mchunu's purpose, once defined by the frame of his camera lens, had been irrevocably transformed. He remained deeply involved with the Conservation Alliance, but he was no longer just an observer documenting from a safe distance. He was an active participant, acutely aware of the deeper layers of corruption festering beneath the serene surface of the bushveld. Months melted into one another. Lazarus, the lion who defied death, thrived in the vast conservancy. He established a territory near the eastern boundary, his roars echoing with renewed strength, often monitored by the vigilant reserve team. The scar around his neck, a permanent reminder of his ordeal, was hidden beneath a magnificent flowing mane. Every few months, Kaelen returned to the conservancy, ostensibly for filming, but driven by a deeper, inexplicable pull. When he visited the designated observation point, sometimes, as if by silent summons, a familiar, tawny figure would appear on a distant ridge. Lazarus, seemingly drawn by Kaelen's presence, would emerge from the dense scrub. In those precious moments, across the vast, necessary distance, man and lion would regard each other. There was no need for words, no physical touch, only a silent, profound acknowledgement of their enduring, unexplainable connection, a bond forged in suffering and compassion, a testament to empathy transcending species. Kaelen's documentary, Lazarus Rising, had indeed exposed a significant piece of the forbidden poaching ring. The world had reacted with outrage, and some justice had been served, but Kaelen knew with a chilling certainty that the true scale of the hidden conservation agendas and the government cover-up behind it was far, far greater. The arrests and prosecutions had targeted the visible parts of the network, the poachers, the mid-level operators, the facilitators. Kaelen understood that the powerful corporate entities or individuals who owned the brand, who funded the operations, and who truly orchestrated the forbidden safari remained untouchable, shielded by their vast influence and impenetrable legal structures. Kaelen continued his work, but now with a heightened awareness of the inherent ongoing personal danger. He was no longer an anonymous filmmaker. He was a marked man in their eyes. Every piece of footage he captured, every interview he conducted, felt like a deliberate act of defiance. He grappled with the ethical implications of his actions. His documentary had brought justice and a second chance at life for Lazarus, but in doing so, it had put Kalen's own life at risk, forcing him into an unseen hunt for truth, a quiet war against a deeply entrenched enemy. The price of truth, he realized, was steeper than he could have ever imagined. Lazarus's survival had become more than just a heartwarming story. It was a potent symbol, not just of hope, but of the fierce, intelligent resistance of nature against human greed and corruption. It was a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable cruelty, life found a way. This realization prompted Kaelen to shift his documentary focus once more. He began delving into investigative journalism within wildlife conservation, meticulously tracing the shadowy links between seemingly legal businesses and the insidious illegal wildlife trade. His camera became a scalpel, dissecting the layers of deceit. He discovered more evidence of sophisticated money laundering schemes, elaborate political lobbying efforts, and shell corporations designed specifically to protect the forbidden safari operations. The web of deceit was vast, intricate, and deeply woven into the fabric of power. The battle, he knew, wasn't over. It was an ongoing, subtle war against corruption that operated beneath the surface, constantly evolving, adapting, and striking from the shadows. There would be no single climactic shootout, no grand finale, but Kaelen also understood that Lazarus's unusual intelligence and the profound bond they shared signified a deeper connection between man and nature, one that could inspire profound change if only people would listen. He stood at the observation point, watching the distant ridge as the sun began its slow descent, casting long, bruised shadows across the golden plains. The enormity of the fight ahead pressed down on him, yet the thought of Lazarus, strong and free, fueled his resolve. The shocking realization was not about a single dramatic confrontation, but the chilling, ever-present reality that he had unveiled a deeply entrenched, dangerous global conspiracy. And his life, like Lazarus's, was now irrevocably intertwined with its exposure, an eternal sentinel in the unseen hunt for truth. Kalen's journey began with a single glint of rusted metal in the Zimbabwean bushveld, an anomaly that snagged his seasoned filmmaker's eye, much like the metal barrel caught Tyler Reed's attention. Like Tendai, he sensed immediately that something wasn't right. What started as a routine patrol meant to document the Conservation Alliance's anti-poaching efforts spiraled into an unseen hunt against a sinister network far more entrenched than simple poachers. The sight of Lazarus, a majestic lion brutally chained by an acacia tree, sparked not just compassion, but an unwavering resolve. This wasn't merely about saving one apex predator, it was about unmasking the forbidden poaching ring that dared to operate with brazen impunity, becoming something else entirely. The bond forged in that desperate moment, a silent acknowledgement between man and beast, became the catalyst for Kaelen to delve into the hidden conservation agendas and potential government cover-ups. He exposed the visible layers of the conspiracy, his documentary sparking international outrage and action. Yet, the true masterminds, the powerful forces behind the ominous corporate brand, still linger in the shadows, their influence vast. Kaelen now understands that the greatest dangers aren't the ambushes in the wild, but the subtle, insidious threats from those who seek to bury the truth. His life, irrevocably intertwined with Lazarus's survival, is a constant testament to the courage required to challenge the unseen global conspiracy.